You latched onto my brother like a leech. Without his money, you're nothing. The billionaire's sister didn't just insult her black sister-in-law. She stripped her of humanity in front of 12 silent witnesses. No one spoke up. Not the relatives, not the board members, not even her husband. Everyone expected Elowen to crack, to cry, to walk out broken. That single choice would follow them from this dinner to the headlines, to a gala where an entire empire started to crumble on camera. This isn't just a humiliation story. It's about how one calm reaction can flip the script on power, money, and racism. Stay with me to see how one recording turned a private insult into a public downfall. Comment where you're watching from, and remember to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. The crack of Cressida Thorne's hands slamming against the mahogany table cut through the room like a whip. Elowen felt the vibration run through the polished surface and up her arms. 12 faces turned toward her, some startled, some expectant, most already judging. She kept her spine straight even as heat spread across her cheeks. Cressida rose from her chair, her tailored white suit sharp against the dark wood. Stellan's older sister always carried herself like a general, and tonight she acted like one on the verge of war. In her hand was a stack of papers that she flung across the table. They scattered in front of Elowen, half sliding into her lap. "Explain this," Cressida snapped. "Explain why money from the family's charity ended up in your company's account." Elowen took a slow breath before picking up the nearest page. She knew everyone in the room was waiting for her to crumble, to look guilty, to panic. She also knew that none of them had ever studied a balance sheet in their lives. Not even Stellan, who sat 2 seats away, looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Elowen scanned the numbers. They were doctored, clumsy even. The person who fabricated these statements didn't understand how vendor IDs worked or how timestamps aligned with invoices. Her voice stayed calm. "These entries are fabricated," she said. "If you look closely, the dates don't match the processing logs, and the charity doesn't even use this format anymore. You would know that if you had checked instead of assuming the worst." A murmur ran around the table. Elowen kept her gaze steady. She was aware of who was present. Roland, the cousin who handled PR, Matilda, an aunt who never liked her, and Genevieve Thorne, Stellan's mother, whose quiet stare always held more menace than her daughter's shouting. Each of them had power in their own way, and they all believed Elowen didn't belong at this table. Cressida's face tightened. Being publicly corrected, especially by the woman she considered unworthy of the Thorne name, was something she clearly could not tolerate. "You think you can talk your way out of this?" Cressida hissed. "You think you're smarter than everyone here?" "I think I know how to read numbers," Elowen replied, "and I know when someone is trying to frame me." Cressida's control snapped. She pointed a shaking finger directly at Elowen's face. "I don't need logic to deal with someone like you," she shouted. "Do you honestly believe you got into this family because of talent? You latched onto my brother the moment you saw he was lonely. You used that skin of yours to guilt him into marriage. You're nothing but a leech who thinks she deserves a place at this table." The room went still. Even the air felt heavy. Elowen heard her own pulse thudding in her ears, yet her expression did not change. She saw Stellan flinch but remain silent, frozen halfway between shock and cowardice. It would have been easy to break down or shout back. Instead, Elowen reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. The screen lit up, illuminating her steady fingers. She tapped the button and placed the device on the table where everyone could see. The recording icon glowed red. Cressida's mouth fell open. "What are you doing?" Elowen's voice was quiet but clear. "Thank you for confirming everything." She stood from her chair. The linen napkin slipped from her knees and fell soundlessly to the floor. No one moved to stop her, not even Stellan, who looked at her with wide, helpless eyes. Genevieve simply folded her hands, her gaze unreadable. Elowen walked toward the door, every step deliberate. She refused to hurry. Her dignity was something no one in the room could take from her, not even in this moment. When she reached the threshold, she paused just long enough to look back at her husband. For a heartbeat, she waited for him to rise, to say something, to show even a hint of the man she once believed he was. He said nothing. Elowen turned away and left the room, letting the door close behind her with a soft but final click. Outside in the hall, her breath shook in her chest. Anger moved through her in waves, but beneath it was something sharper. Resolve. A cold, steady clarity that told her this night was far from the end. If anything, it was the start. Elowen pushed through the front doors of the Thorne estate with her breath tight in her chest. The cold air hit her face as she crossed the stone steps, fumbling for her keys. She refused to let her hands shake, but the tremor still slipped through her fingers. Her car chirped as she unlocked it. She slid into the driver's seat and closed the door with more force than she intended. For a moment, she leaned her forehead against the steering wheel, letting the echo of Cressida's voice fade. She wanted silence. Just a few seconds of silence. She started the engine, but the headlights flashed across the hood before she could pull away. Stellan's car swerved in front of hers and blocked her path. He climbed out, still wearing his dinner jacket, his tie crooked as if he had run all the way after her. "Elowen, wait," he called, raising both hands as he approached. "Please, don't drive off like this." She lowered the window just enough for her voice to pass through. "Move your car." "Not until we talk," he said. His voice was low, almost pleading. "You can't leave like that. Everyone is on edge. They are not thinking clearly." Elowen let out a humorless breath. "I am not interested in defending their behavior." He glanced around the dark driveway, as if hoping the walls wouldn't hear him. "Just listen to me. Delete that recording. Please. If it gets out, it will destroy the foundation's reputation. The fallout will be enormous." His words landed like a slap. Elowen stared at him, unsure for a second if she had heard correctly. "Your sister called me a leech to my face. She said I trapped you with my skin. And what concerns you is the foundation's reputation." Stellan stepped closer. He looked nervous, his gaze flicking across her expression as if searching for the right angle to persuade her. "I know what she said was awful. I am not excusing it. But things could spiral out of control. The board will panic. Donors will pull out. If this becomes public, it won't just hit her, it will hit all of us." "All of us," she repeated softly. "You mean your family?" He swallowed but didn't answer. That silence told her everything. Elowen straightened in her seat. "I am your wife, Stellan. Or does that only matter when the cameras are on?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. Before she could say more, her phone buzzed with a sharp vibration. She glanced at the screen. 3 notifications stacked together. Her credit card company, her office building's security system, the family-run corporate bank. Each message carried the same message in different wording. "Access revoked. Authorization removed. Card suspended." Her stomach tightened. They moved faster than she expected. She looked up at Stellan. "Did you know they were doing this?" He blinked, genuinely confused. "Doing what?" She turned the phone toward him. "They froze everything, every card, every pass. They cut me out in under 10 minutes. Stellan's face went pale. "I didn't approve anything. I swear. I had no idea." Her phone vibrated again. This time it was a call. The name on the screen made her pulse jump. Genevieve Thorne. Elowen answered, because not answering would not stop whatever was coming. "Elowen." Genevieve's voice was cool and steady. "I heard there was some unpleasantness at dinner. I am calling to offer clarity." Elowen gripped the steering wheel. "What kind of clarity?" "You will not release that recording," Genevieve said. "It would trigger scandals you cannot imagine. It would make banks hesitant to do business with you. Potential partners would reconsider their relationship with your firm." "I know you are ambitious. I would hate to see your aspirations." Interrupted. "You are threatening my livelihood," Elowen said. "I am giving you a direction," Genevieve replied. "If you walk away quietly, this will be over. If you don't, you will find the world very small and very closed." Elowen felt something inside her settle. Not fear, not despair. A steadiness colder than either. "Thank you for your warning," she said. "I will consider it." She hung up. Stellan leaned down toward the open window. What did she say? Elowen looked at him, really looked at him. The man she loved, the man she defended, the man she trusted, and now the man who chose silence when she needed him most. "She said exactly what your family has always believed," Elowen answered, "that I should know my place." "That's not fair," Stellan protested. "You know that's not what I think. But it is what you protect." Elowen shifted the gear. "Move your car, Stellan." He hesitated. "Elowen, please, we can fix this." She met his eyes. "You just helped break it." He stepped back, defeated. She drove past him without looking in the mirror. As she reached the gates, her breath slowly evened. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something sharper, a sense that the rules had changed and she would no longer play the role they assigned to her. Tonight they showed her what they were willing to do. Now it was her turn. 2 days later, the hotel room felt smaller than it had the night before. Elowen sat at the edge of the bed, her laptop open beside her. The bright headlines filled the screen like punches she had no time to dodge. Wife of billionaire accused of embezzling charity funds. From fairy tale to fraud, the Elowen vein scandal, Cinderella or con artist. Every article carried the same narrative, the same anonymous sources, the same angle that painted her as a manipulator who used her marriage to access the Thorne family's wealth. It was coordinated, professional, and fast. Cressida had not wasted a single hour. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Maya, her operations manager, and the first person she hired when she founded her landscape architecture firm. Maya's tone was usually upbeat, but the text was tight and rushed. Clients are pulling out. 3 contracts were canceled this morning. The team is panicking. What do we tell them? Elowen closed her eyes. She could picture Maya pacing the office, trying to reassure employees who depended on her. Maya wasn't just a colleague. She had been with Elowen from the beginning, supporting her designs long before anyone knew Elowen's name. Another message appeared before Elowen could respond. Some staff are asking if we're shutting down. Elowen dialed immediately. When Maya answered, her voice trembled slightly. Elowen, it's bad. I'm trying to hold everything together, but the interns are crying, vendors want statements, and the clients, they won't even take my calls. I'm sorry you're dealing with this, Elowen said. Tell the team I'm handling it. We are not closing. Can you stop the story? Maya asked, or at least slow it down. I'm going to try. After the call ended, Elowen stared at the wall for a moment. She felt the weight of 2 worlds pressing on her at once. The personal betrayal from the Thornes and the professional destruction now ripping through her company. She refused to crumble. A knock sounded at the door. She rose quickly, checking the peephole before opening it. Standing outside was Adrian Mercer, her attorney. Adrian had represented her firm for years. He was calm, sharp-eyed, and known for solving problems quietly. He stepped inside with a briefcase in one hand. You made the news, he said, setting the case on the table. I noticed. Adrian studied her expression. Are you holding up? I'm angry, she admitted, but I'm thinking clearly. That's good, because the Thornes are moving aggressively. Whoever is coordinating the articles has access to media contacts and a clear objective. To destroy me. Adrian opened his briefcase. Then we don't respond emotionally. We respond strategically. You mentioned there was something you've been preparing. Elowen nodded. She crossed the room to retrieve a separate folder from her suitcase. She handed it to him. These are documents a private investigator found. His name is Rowan Hale. I hired him 3 months ago when I started sensing something off. He traced suspicious transfers tied to Cressida. I didn't know how far she'd go, but I had a feeling. Adrian browsed the pages. This is substantial. If these numbers are accurate, she's been laundering money through the foundation's shell vendors. And framing me fixes her tracks, Elowen said softly. Adrian closed the file. We can leak a portion of this to the right parties. Not to defend you, to redirect the spotlight. She'll know it's me. She already declared war. Elowen considered that. There was no turning back now. Her life had been dismantled publicly. She would not allow them to bury her quietly. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rowan Hale, the investigator she had hired. He was resourceful, discreet, and had a reputation for uncovering what others missed. They had only met twice, but she trusted his work. She answered. Rowan's voice was brisk. You've seen the news? I have. I traced some of the leaks, Rowan said. The timing and sources match a coordinated push from Cressida Thorne's office. She prepared this in advance. I figured. One more thing, Rowan continued. The story is spreading internationally. If you want to counter it, you need something heavy enough to break through the noise. Elowen glanced at the folder Adrian now held. I have exactly that. Rowan paused. Then this is your moment. After the call ended, Adrian looked at her. Once this goes out, everything escalates. I know. Her voice didn't shake. Release the financial evidence. The public needs to see who is actually stealing. Adrian nodded and stepped aside to make the necessary calls. When the door closed behind him, Elowen exhaled deeply. For the first time in days, she felt her heartbeat steady. The Thornes tried to corner her. They thought scandal would make her retreat. They forgot who she was. She opened her laptop again, watching as her inbox flooded with new accusations. She did not look away. If they wanted a war, she would fight with facts, and she would strike first. Stellan stood in the doorway of the Thorne family lounge, frozen in place as laughter drifted toward him. Cressida lounged on the velvet sofa with a glass of wine, looking far too relaxed for someone whose accusations had just blown up across every news network. Roland, their cousin who handled PR, sat beside her with his laptop open. He was typing quickly, pausing only to grin at another headline flashing across the screen. "This one is my favorite," Roland said. "The image they chose makes her look guilty even when she's just breathing." Cressida clinked her glass against his. "Good. People should see her for what she is. A problem solved before it spreads." Stellan's stomach twisted. He stepped into the room and their laughter dimmed slightly, but Cressida's smirk didn't fade. "You seem tense," she said. "Rough morning?" Stellan tried to steady his voice. "You don't seem upset at all about the press storm." "Why would I be upset?" Cressida took a slow sip. "It's justice." "It's not justice if it isn't true." She lowered her glass, expression sharpening. "You really want to defend her, after everything?" Roland closed his laptop, sensing the shift. "I'll give you two a moment," he murmured as he slipped out. Stellan walked toward the desk in the corner of the room. He knew he shouldn't look. He knew that if he confirmed the suspicion growing inside him, something in him would break in a way he couldn't repair. But he still reached for the drawer he had seen Cressida shove papers into earlier. "Don't go through my things," Cressida snapped. But he had already opened it. Inside was a thick folder organized into tabs. Printed emails, charts, dates, a timeline. The first page hit him like a physical blow. Projected removal of Elowen vein from Thorn legacy influence. The date at the top was from a year ago, months before the wedding. He flipped through the pages with shaking hands. Notes about damaging Elowen's reputation, tracking her work relationships, talking points for the press, fabricated financial trails, a checklist titled Risk Containment. "She was never one of us," Cressida said behind him, her voice steady and cold. "You were making a mistake. We had to protect you." Stellan turned to her. "You planned this before you even met her properly. We didn't need to meet her. We saw what she was." "She is my wife," he said, louder than he intended. Cressida's lip curled. "Legally, yes. Emotionally, you were lonely and impulsive. She took advantage of that." Stellan felt a pressure building in his chest. He didn't know if it was anger or disbelief or shame, but it threatened to spill over. He grabbed the folder and strode out of the room. Genevieve was in the upstairs study, arranging documents with practiced precision. She looked up when he entered. "Mother," Stellan said, dropping the folder on the desk. "How long have you known about this?" Genevieve didn't even blink. "Long enough. You approved it?" "I designed most of it," she said without hesitation. "Your sister carried out the execution. A necessary task." "A necessary task," he repeated, stunned. "You tore apart my marriage. You dragged her name through the mud." Genevieve folded her hands. "We preserved our name. You fell for someone who does not fit this family, this world, or your future. We intervened." "Intervened?" Stellan stared at her, feeling something inside him fracture. "You didn't intervene. You destroyed her." "She is resilient," Genevieve said. "She will survive, and you will move on. In time, you will thank me." He felt sick, truly sick. "I won't." He grabbed the folder again and walked out. Genevieve didn't chase after him. She simply watched him leave, expression unreadable. Stellan reached his own office, slammed the door shut, and sat behind his desk. His hands moved automatically as he unlocked his personal safe. Inside were encrypted drives, internal reports, and documents that only he had access to. He hesitated only a moment before removing several files. Things the public never saw. Things that could destroy reputations and expose years of hidden malpractice. He stacked them on the desk, his heart pounding as he made the decision that would sever him from his family. Elowen deserved to know the truth, and she deserved every weapon he could give her. Stellan attached the files to a secure email addressed to her. He stared at the screen before hitting send. "I'm sorry," he whispered to no one. Then he pressed the button. In that moment, he understood something with painful clarity. His wife didn't destroy his family. They destroyed themselves. He was only finally seeing the wreckage. The ballroom glowed with warm light, crystal chandeliers scattering gold across silk gowns and polished shoes. The annual Thorn Foundation Gala was meant to be a place of prestige, a night where the elite congratulated themselves for their generosity. Cressida stood near the stage, rehearsing her smile in the reflection of a champagne tower. She wore an emerald dress that made her look triumphant, almost regal. Tonight was supposed to be her redemption, her moment to rewrite the narrative. She had no idea Elowen was already inside. Elowen walked through the entrance with calm steps, wearing a sleek ivory jumpsuit that contrasted against the shadows of the room. Heads turned immediately. Some whispered, some stared outright, but none stopped her. They didn't recognize her as the disgraced wife. They recognized her as the lead architect for Luminous Partners, the new philanthropic sponsor of the foundation. She had closed the deal less than a week ago, using talent, not her last name, to get it. At her side was Mark Levington, the director representing the sponsor organization. He was sharp, confident, and had met Elowen only 3 days earlier. Mark respected her work and had no connection to the Thorns, which made him the perfect shield. "You're sure you want to proceed with this?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Elowen replied. "Tonight is the only night everyone who needs to hear the truth will be in one room." Mark nodded, stepping back. "Then I'll make sure the program goes exactly as planned." Elowen continued toward the stage area just as Cressida noticed her. The older woman's smile froze mid-curvature. "What is she doing here?" Cressida hissed to a nearby staff member before storming over. "Elowen, this is not the place for you." Elowen met her stare without flinching. "I'm here as the lead architect of your primary sponsor. I was invited." "That contract was rushed and suspicious," Cressida snapped. "You must have manipulated someone. You always do." Mark appeared beside them just in time. "Ms. Thorne, if you have concerns about the sponsorship, you should take it up with our board. Miss Vane is here in an official capacity." Cressida's jaw locked, but the presence of a powerful third party forced her to retreat. She leaned closer to Elowen and whispered, "If you think stepping foot in this room redeems you, you are delusional." Elowen's expression didn't change. "I didn't come for redemption." The program began. The room quieted as Cressida took the stage with her prepared speech about resilience, charity, and overcoming adversity. Her voice carried confidence. She thought the night was hers. She had no idea what was coming. When she finished, Mark stepped forward. "Before we conclude, our sponsoring partner has requested a brief presentation. Miss Elowen Vane, please join us." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cressida stiffened like she had been struck. Elowen climbed the steps calmly. She took the microphone, her heartbeat steady. "Thank you," she said. "I'm honored to speak tonight." She paused. She looked at the glowing room full of people who had heard lies about her for days. "Before I continue with the planned presentation," she said, "there is something I need to clarify." Her finger tapped her phone. The speakers connected instantly. Cressida's voice filled the ballroom. "You're nothing but a leech. You use that skin of yours to trap my brother. You think you belong at our table?" Cressida paled. She grabbed the railing as gasps spread like wildfire. A few people covered their mouths. Some turned to look directly at her with disgust or shock. Elowen let the recording run for 3 full seconds before she stopped it. She held the microphone again. "You have all heard accusations against me this week," she said calmly. "Tonight, I want you to hear the truth." She turned her gaze to Cressida, who stood shaking with rage and humiliation. "I am a black woman," Elowen said, her voice steady. "And somehow that was seen as enough reason to destroy my reputation, my work, and my life. But I am also the architect behind the very project your foundation is celebrating tonight, and the person who will redesign the community gardens that this organization funds." The crowd fell silent, listening. "Elowen," Cressida snarled, stepping forward. "Turn that off." Elowen didn't move. Everyone in this room deserves to know what kind of leadership represents this foundation. Cressida lunged, but Mark placed himself between them. "Do not escalate this, Miss Thorne." Elowen continued speaking. "When I am attacked, I defend myself. Not with rumors, not with lies, with truth." She lowered the microphone slightly, her eyes never leaving Cressida's. "And the truth is that your future, Cressida Thorne, will be facing accountability. A very long, overdue accountability." The crowd erupted into whispers. Camera flashes went off. Reporters scribbled notes. Genevieve, seated in the front row, sat stone still, her lips pressed into a thin line. Elowen stepped back from the microphone. She did not wait for applause or reaction. The point had been made. The room had heard everything. Tonight, the balance shifted. Tonight, Cressida fell. The morning after the gala, the Thorne corporate headquarters no longer felt like the empire it once was. The glass walls seemed thinner. The silence was heavier. Every employee moved with stiff, nervous steps, as though afraid the floor might crack beneath them. Stellan walked through the lobby with a knot in his stomach. Screens that usually displayed company achievements now flashed red banners. The news channels were relentless. Thorn Foundation leader accused of racist conduct. Gala meltdown raises questions about family governance. Cressida Thorn under investigation for financial misconduct. Each headline hit him like another reminder of what his family had built and what they were now watching crumble. On the 32nd floor, the boardroom buzzed with tense voices. Members of the board of directors gathered around the long table, flipping through documents with expressions ranging from fear to fury. At the head of the table was Chairman Malcolm Reed, a stern man who had known the Thorn family for decades but never shied away from challenging them. He adjusted his glasses as Stellan entered. "Stellan," Malcolm said, "sit." Stellan obeyed, though every muscle in his body felt tight. Cressida entered moments later, escorted by two senior board members. She looked disheveled, nothing like the polished woman who had strutted across the gala stage the night before. Her hands shook as she pulled out a chair. Genevieve arrived last. Her composure was as sharp as always, but even she couldn't mask the tension around her eyes. Malcolm stood. "We are here because last night's incident has placed this company in immediate jeopardy. Our stock opened 20 points down, investors are demanding statements, and the Department of Social Equity has launched an official inquiry." Cressida gripped the sides of her chair. "This is an overreaction," she said. "One personal moment taken out of context should not dictate the company's trajectory." "It wasn't one moment," Malcolm replied. "It was a public recording of racial discrimination by the leader of our foundation. And combined with the financial irregularities Ms. Vane exposed earlier this week, we are facing a scandal of unprecedented scale." Cressida's face drained of color. "She set me up. She must have been planning this for months." Stellan pressed his hands together under the table. "You did this to yourself," he muttered, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. Genevieve shot him a warning glance. "Now is not the time for emotional theatrics," she whispered. Malcolm cleared his throat. "We need accountability, immediately. The board is calling for Cressida Thorn to be removed from her role as foundation director, effective today." "What?" Cressida surged to her feet. "You can't do that." "It is either you step down," Malcolm said, "or the board will request a federal investigation into the misuse of funds under your management. And believe me, the evidence will not fall in your favor." Cressida looked around the room desperately. "Mother, do something." Genevieve finally rose. She placed her hands on Cressida's shoulders. "Sit down," she said quietly. "What?" "Sit," Genevieve repeated. "You have no allies left here. The more you resist, the worse this becomes." Stellan watched as Cressida sank back into her chair, trembling. "And," Malcolm continued, "we are also recommending that Mrs. Genevieve Thorn retire from her advisory position, effective immediately." A ripple of shock moved through the room. Genevieve stiffened. "On what grounds?" "Because your involvement in the strategic planning of this charity has contributed to this collapse. It is time for the next generation to lead without your influence." Genevieve's face cracked for the first time. "You will regret this," she said coldly. "This family built this company, and this family nearly destroyed it," Malcolm replied. As security arrived to escort Cressida out, she screamed Stellan's name. "This is your fault. You never controlled her. You chose her over us." Stellan stood slowly. "I chose what was right." Cressida fought against the officers, crying out, "You're nothing without me, without this family." The doors closed behind her, cutting off her voice. When the room finally emptied, Stellan remained seated, staring at the table. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of what had just happened. He had lost the family name, the protection, the inheritance, the world he grew up in. But for the first time, he felt something like clarity. He reached for his phone and typed a short message to Elowen. "You were right. I am choosing the truth. I stand with you." He hit send. Outside the boardroom, protesters gathered with signs demanding justice. Reporters swarmed the entrance. Employees whispered about what would happen next. The Thorn Empire had started to fall, and Elowen had pulled the first thread. 1 year later, Elowen sat in her new office overlooking the city, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of a polished oak desk she had chosen herself. The space felt warm, open, and alive with the quiet hum of a place built from intention rather than inheritance. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the room with afternoon light, and sketches of future public gardens lined the walls. Every part of it was hers, earned without anyone's permission. A soft knock sounded on the door. "Come in," she said, expecting her assistant or a member of her design team. Instead, Stellan stepped inside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He looked different from the man she had last seen at the height of the scandal. His suit was simpler, sleeves slightly rolled, a hint of fatigue beneath his eyes. But there was calmness, too, a quiet steadiness she had never seen in him when he was surrounded by the weight of the Thorne name. "Hi," he said gently. "Hi." She gestured to the chair across from her. "You can sit." He did. His posture was less rigid than it used to be, as if losing the empire had loosened the armor he once clung to. "I heard you opened the community garden in Westbridge last week," he said. "The pictures were everywhere. It looked beautiful." "Thank you," Elowen replied, her voice steady. "It was a meaningful project." "I'm sure it was," he said softly. "It felt like something you would build, something that belongs to people, not to investors." She studied him carefully. Over the past year, they had exchanged occasional messages, mostly updates about court proceedings or charity matters. Nothing emotional, nothing deep. They both needed time, and they had taken it. "What about you?" she asked. "How is your startup?" A faint smile curved on his lips. "Small, chaotic, taking every ounce of my patience. But it's mine, and I'm learning who I am without them." She nodded. She respected that more than he knew. He looked around the office. "You did all this on your own?" "Yes," she said simply. "I needed to." Stellan inhaled slowly, as if bracing himself. "I want to apologize again. Not the kind of apology people give when they want something. The real one. The one I should have given you the moment I realized what my family had done." Elowen didn't interrupt him. "I was weak," he continued. "I let them decide what I was allowed to believe. I let their fear and their pride control me. I hurt you because I was afraid of confronting them, and I will regret that for the rest of my life." She looked at him, not with anger, but with a long-earned clarity. "It wasn't just fear, Stellan. You chose them over me for a long time." He lowered his gaze. "I know. And even now," she added, "I don't want a version of you that's trying to fix the past. I want you to build a future that isn't shaped by what they taught you." He nodded, the honesty in her voice settling heavily but not painfully. "I'm trying. Every day." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't tense. It felt like space being rebuilt. Stellan reached into his bag and placed a thin folder on her desk. "I wanted to give you this. The settlement from the last inquiry. Cressida won't be interfering with anything anymore. She's being indicted." Elowen exhaled, not triumphantly, but with something closer to peace. "Good." She needed to face the consequences. "There's something else too," he said quietly. "If you ever want to talk, or just share a coffee, I'd like the chance to know you again. Not as the man I was, but as who I'm becoming." Her eyes softened, but she didn't let sentiment carry her. "Coffee is fine," she said, "but slowly. I don't rush into old habits." He smiled, small but sincere. "Slow is good." Elowen opened a drawer and pulled out a checkbook. She filled out a donation slip, signed it, and tore it off. Stellan watched silently. "What's that for?" he asked. "For the Women of Color Startup Fund," she replied. "A program we're expanding. Seed grants, mentorship, networking. Doors I had to break open should be easier for the next woman." He stared at her with admiration he didn't try to hide. "You're doing something extraordinary." "I'm doing what they told me I couldn't do," she said calmly. She leaned back, letting the sunlight pour across her desk. "I don't need the Thorne family's approval. I don't need their name. I built my own table, and now I choose who sits at it." Stellan rose slowly. "I hope one day I'll earn a seat again." She didn't answer immediately, but she didn't say no. When he left, Elowen looked out at the city skyline and let the moment settle. She wasn't defined by the war she survived. She was defined by what she created afterward. Thank you for listening to this journey of resilience, power, and self-worth. What part of Elowen's story stayed with you the most? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Your support means everything. Stay tuned for more stories, and until next time, take care and keep your voice strong.